Welcome to another episode of She's Wild and Freed. I'm your host, Jen, and I am super excited you're here today. I am fired up, and this may be a controversial episode, but that's the thing. That's what this podcast is about. We are no longer going to live under those spoken or unspoken rules that we should be doing this or how we should be acting. We should be eating a certain way, or we have to be going down this path, or we can't try anything because that's the way it's always been. Some of the worst phrase out there in the English language. And this podcast is about living freed of those shoulds and have tos and being wild in the process. So buckle up. We are going to dive in. So there's so many norms and pressures out there. Some are passed down to us through generations. Some we inflict on ourselves. And many are so ingrained in us, we don't even know it. March is National Women's History Month, and I am in awe of what the women before me accomplished, what they pushed through, and they really enabled me to be where I am today as a professional, as a mom, as a woman in this 21st century. And I just appreciate the path that they forged so that I could be in this position to talk with you today. I also think about the younger generation, or, well, younger to me, the millennials and Gen Z females, which that's where my daughters are in Gen Z, excuse me. And they're questioning and challenging the norms and frankly not even interested in them. They're creating the lives they want, and it's amazing and inspiring, and it gives me hope for the future. I completely and totally have fallen into the category of people who say things like, it is what it is, or I don't want to make a big deal. It's okay. It's too late for me. I should have started earlier. It's fine. I'm going to do a whole episode on that word one day. Fine. I call it the other F word, but I'm going to stay focused on the topic today. I was thinking back to when I was a little girl. I think I was around 8 years old, and my brother, who's a little bit younger than me, decided he wanted to play soccer. And my parents asked me if I was interested, and I was like, no, that's not for girls. What? At 8 years old, I was already learning those roles of girls and boys. Now, to be fair, there weren't that many girls playing soccer, or at least what I could see in the mid 80s. And, you know, I want to pause for a moment because my parents always supported me in whatever I wanted to try, and they deserve a lot of credit. They encouraged me, and whatever sport or activity I was into, they were there cheering me on. So I really, really appreciate that. So I ended up doing cheerleading in elementary and middle school, as well as softball. And later in high school, I shifted to cross country and softball. But that's what I saw girls doing, especially in the town where we moved to when I was in fourth grade. The girls were either doing or playing softball or they were cheerleaders. And I've fallen victim to this perception just too many times. And I wonder if maybe you specifically can relate to this. And I even hear my son say these things often too. That's for girls. I don't want to do that. That's girly. I speak about it often to him, that it's not necessarily a girl boy thing, but he's already formed really strong opinions on what is for girls or for boys. But this isn't just about gender. It could be anything. Think about folks who say bigger people like me don't run, or people like me don't start a business. I don't know if this resonates with you. That's for people who have money. I can't change jobs. I don't have enough experience. I won't be able to make friends because I'm shy. And the list goes on and on. So one more note before we get off of women's sports. I've been following some of the different sports that the women are playing right now. And wow. I mean, just wow. Women are truly showing what athleticism looks like, teamwork, sportswomanship, and dedication. I've loved following the Caitlin Clark story in college basketball. It's just amazing. And if you don't know, I encourage you to Google her and see what a powerhouse she is and the path she's forging and the influence of those who went before her. It's just super exciting. Today, we are going to talk about breaking the cycle. And the cycle that we seem to be reliving over and over and over again. Of course, that's why it's called a cycle. And I'm going to start by talking about a recent Netflix documentary I watched, which, to be honest, has totally changed my perspective on aging and who we should be when we get older. The show is Live to 100, The Secrets of the Blue Zones, hosted by the man who created the term Blue Zones, Dan Buettner. I think I'm pronouncing that right. So to be honest, when asked or when people talked about living to 100, I would always say, no, I'm good. I'll live to 80. I had no interest living to 100 because my perception was I will be sitting in a rocking chair somewhere or lying in a bed, not doing much. And I just can't imagine a life like that. I figured that if I lived until 80 or so, I would have lived a long life and hopefully in good health and good mental capacity. But anything after that, my health and mental capacity would decline, and I'm just not here for that. Of course, I really don't have any control of any of that or the outcome, which stay tuned for that because I am going to introduce a series or do something in this podcast about releasing ourselves from outcomes. So more to come on that one. But back to the subject. I don't know if you can tell, but the creative juices have been flowing, and I've just been noticing my environment, how I perceive things in the world, the struggles we have, the things we can and cannot change. And to be honest, the journey I'm on is really fascinating. I'm experiencing things and becoming more aware. I just can't wait to share those things with you. So again, stay tuned as we're going to have some really cool stuff coming down the pike in the podcast. So after watching this documentary, and I won't give too much away because you should go and watch it if you haven't already, my perception changed about aging and what life looks like for our elders. So let me start by talking about why I thought living past 80 was not something I wanted. 3 out of my 4 grandparents did not live past 80. My granddaddy and Tad, that's what I called them, died in their 60s from cancer. They were both World War II veterans, smokers, had stressful jobs, and unfortunately, I only knew my granddaddy for a few years. He passed when I was 9. And for several of those years, he had cancer, and as a little kid, that scared me. Even though I was told I couldn't catch it, I stayed away. My Tad, now he did quit smoking after a heart attack. He did live a little bit longer and died when I was 16. But that's what I saw as getting older. You get sick and you die. My nanny passed away when she was 80. She lived a good life with heart health issues most of her life, most of her life, due to getting scarlet fever as a child. And her heart and body were just ready to rest at 80. My grandmother did live to be 90. Unfortunately, though, she suffered from failing health and physical and issues for many years, leading up to her passing. You see, that is what I've known. This is what I accepted of what life is like when you get older. And I didn't want any part of that. But then I saw this documentary and I saw people in the blue zones in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, active and healthy. They were playing tennis, riding horses, chopping wood, making food with their hands, dancing, playing games, and enjoying time with friends and family, not sitting around just waiting to die. And I had heard about the blue zones and thought that was an interesting subject, but I didn't really know much about it or what life was like in those areas until I watched this documentary. And my whole perspective has changed about living into my 80s and 90s. And this got me thinking about the things we just accept. We accept that we work 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. I know not all of us have that schedule, but a lot of us do have that typical Monday through Friday schedule. We accept our kids go to daycare and after school care because we're working during those hours. Plus, we sign them up for summer camp, although summer camp can be super fun. We accept that we are overweight because our parents were and their parents were. This just is what it is. We accept that our relationships have gotten routine and our daily lives are routine, and that's just how life is with kids. We accept that we feel stuck or we can't do that thing or we're tired all the time, but we keep pushing and feeling burned out because that's just how life is right now. But I'm here to say F that. That is not how it has to be. We are allowing life to happen to us. We're falling into these bad habits and allowing our past to dictate our future. Or worse, our parents and our grandparents' lives dictate who we are and what we do. And honestly, we're letting other people's perceptions and opinions, what they know through their experiences, influence and shape our lives. I say no more. Our parents did the best they could with what they knew, with the information they had and experiences they had. But that doesn't mean our lives turn out the same. We don't need to follow the same patterns. Think about it. Remember when smoking was allowed inside buildings and in restaurants? Down here in the South, you can go into some older gas stations and it still kind of smells like smoke inside. And I don't remember this, but my father-in-law was talking about how they used to smoke in business meetings and on planes. What? But we found out smoking's bad for us, along with secondhand smoke, especially on children, and the rules changed. Did you know that a woman could not get a bank account or a credit card in her name without her husband signing it until 1974? Just 50 years ago, I would not be able to have a bank account or a credit card in my name. What if we just accepted that? Remember when the majority of employers said that they could not allow employees to work from home? Remote work was not going to work. We would be less productive. There was no way to secure technology, and in person was the only way to work. Yeah, sometimes we're forced to seeing things in different ways, and COVID definitely did that for us in a lot of areas of our lives. But I remember that my employer would not give me a laptop at the time. Only a few of the executives had one. They didn't want to allow folks to work from home. It was too risky. Now, I was in a high risk environment or the business we were in, but, too risky. They can't pay attention to what we're doing. And then COVID hit. But here's another thought. Have you known anyone who has gotten a pretty serious health diagnosis and then they change the way they eat, the way they move, their lifestyle? Everything changes with that diagnosis. Or someone has a wedding coming up, or a vacation, or a reunion. And so to get ready for it, they lose a bunch of weight. Do you know someone, maybe you specifically, who was laid off or you lost your job unexpectedly? And that changed your whole situation. And now you have a fulfilling career. What the heck are you waiting for? You can fill in the blank. I don't see anyone in my past or present life changing their situation or doing X. Fill in the blank. That's just the way it's always been, or it is what it is. We've got to change that narrative, that perspective. I mean, what if we stop thinking that way? Some other thoughts are like, well, once my kids leave the house, then I'll do that thing. Or you might be thinking, well, I'll have time for myself once this thing happens. I'll exercise more. I'll read more. I'll finally go back to school. I can't wait to travel when I retire. None of this is going to happen if you wait. None of it. And I know I'm sounding intense on this episode, but I'm serious. You have to start right now, and you can. It's up to you. It's within your power. One foot in front of the other. Put the phone down, bring the book up, get your transcripts, and schedule a meeting with an advisor today. These things take seconds, but it's the biggest barrier. And you must choose yourself, your wants, your goals, and not give in to what's always been. And this comes back to habits. I talk about habits a lot. But if you have a habit of picking up your phone every night and scrolling before bed, you literally need to put the phone down consciously and grab the book instead. This is a conscious choice. But as you consistently put the phone down bring the book up. It becomes a habit. You look forward to reading at night. You can't wait to see what happens with the plot. Or you're reading a personal development book and you're really learning things that will help you. So I do want to share one part about the Netflix documentary, Live to 100, The Secrets of the Blue Zones. And this was in the final show. It's not really a spoiler alert, but I guess if you really don't want to hear, if you're someone who needs to watch something and you haven't yet, you can skip ahead a minute or so. The host talks about a gentleman he met through his travels and studies who, in his 60s, started getting shortness of breath. He went to multiple doctors, and they all said that he had terminal lung cancer and only a few months to live. So this man was originally from Italy, and he had come to the States as a young man to create a life here and live that typical American life. But when he got the diagnosis, he and his wife decided they wanted to return to their homeland for him to essentially live out his last days. But here's the spoiler alert. He didn't die. He lived into his 90s. And he didn't sit around being sick. He thrived. He didn't cut out things from his life or diet. In fact, he ate plenty of carbs and drank wine, as they do in Italy. This story was so inspiring to me. At one point in the documentary, the gentleman said, when asked how he was able to live so long, he said, "I don't know. I guess I forgot to die." I don't know if you can relate to this, but living in today's world where we're constantly trying to get to the next thing or trying to avoid the stresses or situations in our lives, we cope with food and drink, including alcohol. We use Netflix and scrolling to avoid or just kind of numb out. We're so busy and trying to achieve or just get to the weekend or get to the end of the day. We can't wait for vacation. And we're accepting that this is our life. This is how it's always been. And this is how it will always be. But you can break that cycle. Like right now. You can choose to change the way you eat, the way you interact with family and coworkers. You can choose to slow down. You can choose to put that phone down or turn off the TV. You can choose to exercise. You break that cycle. You can choose the content you consume, the opinions you actually care about, and who to listen to. You can choose who you want to be when you wake up in the morning. You can choose how you spend your time, where you spend your money, and who you give your energy to. This is all in your power. You don't need permission. The power is within you, and it always has been there. You are your biggest fan, your best friend, and the only person who has been here from the very beginning for you. And believe me, I know this sounds simple or easy, like you can choose that. It sounds like Oprah, you get a car, you get a car. But it's true. These things are simple. When we get curious about, everything, how we do things, why we do them this way instead of that way, how we interact with people, what we do when we're bored, what we do when we're productive. why we choose to eat certain things or drink certain things. What we experience when we get quiet with ourselves. How we prioritize. Why we wear certain things or why we don't wear certain things. How we speak. When we speak. Why we don't speak up. What we accept as truth and never question. It's time to get curious, notice, reflect, write things down, and then do it all again without judgment. We cannot judge ourselves or we cannot change. You, the you that was born into this world, the you that needs your light, your talents, your voice, is the truth. Accepting what's always been is frankly a cop-out. It's the easy way out. I mean, it may not feel like that, but when you get curious about you, you can't just look at the areas in the light. You also have to go in the dark too, the shadow side. But living as others expect us to live, tending to someone else's needs, well, you completely and totally let yourself down. And I know you may think you're hurting others or letting them down. You're disappointing them when you choose yourself, when you set boundaries, when you live in your truth. But not doing those things is letting yourself down. You're breaking promises to you and forgetting your truth. Take one step right now. Write one thing down. Put a reminder in your phone. Use that technology for good. Even change your phone settings so you're not scrolling late at night. Make that call. Schedule that appointment. Whatever's on your heart right now is exactly it. Whatever just popped up in your mind, do it now. Your future self will thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode and you are fired up to live the life of your dreams. The dream life takes work, but it's work worth doing. And if you've hung in this long through the episode, I want to remind you of the March 2024 promotion I have going on for my podcast listeners. If it feels right, if that voice inside of you is saying, go ahead, sign up for a discovery call with Jen, then do it. The discovery session is complimentary. 60 minutes, a call with me to talk through your goals, what may be stopping you or getting in your way, and how to move forward. And remember, if you decide to sign up with me for the 90-day Total Transformation Program before midnight on March 31st, you will also receive the first session of the 12-week program for free. There's only a few slots left, so I would love for you to take one of those. If you're not ready for coaching yet, but you're loving this podcast and haven't already, please like, subscribe, follow, whatever the actions are where you listen to podcasts, and stick around and leave a 5-star review. That helps get the podcast heard by new listeners. Thanks for listening, y'all. I'll talk to you later.